What do you like to eat? Brains, I bet. And who doesn't like eating brains? Nate, Hollywood DM. And as I'm ramping up towards the release of Noctis, wanted to talk about one of the races that I wanted to put into the book that has not been made playable in the normal D&D universe. Mostly because they're insidiously evil, and it would be difficult to kind of balance them, in my opinion. But I wanted to give it a shot. Horror, sci-fi genre, I wanted players to be able to play the things that are like on the dark side of the street. A lycanthrope, or a vampire, or an undead, or in this case, an eludri, or a mind reaper. Copyright sidestepped. At any rate, it's probably an elevated form of play, so I would caution before going into playing this race, because it would be an origin for 2024 race in 5e. And I would recommend talking at length with your GM about it before you attempt to try and delve into it. I'm playtesting it right now, actually, at a table. Is it okay? And he was all right with it. He thought it'd be interesting, and we had to nail some things down. And I've actually altered the race because of gameplay, but I didn't tell the players. And so as we started gameplay, the Mind Reaper has the ability to talk telepathically with people, and this started to get people kind of like, what's going on? And then finally it revealed whenever there was someone we were trying to question, and I pulled them aside. I'm like, oh, let me handle this for a moment. And pulled them aside, and then ate their brain and tried to get knowledge. And everyone's like, oh my god, I totally knew something was up. So it's an interesting reveal, right? In the hands of a player that just wants to cause chaos, it could be a problem. Well, let's delve into the race right now. So Mind Reapers are instinctively somewhat evil, and that's not because of their actual moral leanings. It's mostly they come from a hive mind culture. That culture obviously thinks of everyone else as inferior. And in many cases, they feed on other people. So the idea of them thinking of them as cattle it's not unheard of for one to go rogue. So one that wants for some autonomy, the lure of being alone, not working for the collective is. I worked in the backstory that my ship, the Nautilus that we were on, crashed, and everyone aboard was destroyed. I was the sole survivor. And now, what does that happen without the thrumming underpinnings of the hive mind trickling small information into your mind? What does that do? Do you go insane? Do you want to hear those noises or to tap into that deep, knowledgeable resource that normally was there and now is gone? I personally chose to make it so that once I start to meet people and we've been through some harrowing experiences, I start to collect friends as though I own them almost, and get somewhat jealous about them spending time with other NPCs. In one case, actually, I felt that NPC was taking advantage of them, so I threatened that NPC and got them under my thumb and told them that if they did not, treat this person nicely, I was going to come and eat their brain. I'm paraphrasing. It was done with a little bit more eloquence than that. They're obviously intellectual beings, but they're also charismatic. And this goes from being able to analyze other races and fit in and mold in with other races. The intoxicating feel of being able to kind of weave through other societies, hidden from their knowledge that you are what you are. You're hiding your identity. A bonus to charisma, +1 to charisma, and you get to choose. You can go +2 to int or +2 to wisdom. Obviously, you can. There's a variant of here. So you could do like one of each. So 1 wisdom, 1 int, 1 charisma. They're ageless. Mind Reapers are considered to be timeless, as long as they can kind of continue to get into some salt nutrient baths or whatever. It can be assumed that they live forever. They start to get out of the adolescence around 30 or 40, but they become kind of a full-fledged, like, I'm an adult at around 100 years. And as I said, their alignment, they do obviously lean towards evil, but much like any other class, they can run, race, they can run the gamut. I would think that they are leaning towards lawful, mostly because of a lifetime being grown with the certain rules of in their society, listening to this hive mind. You also follow orders for the collective. So they have a lawful underpinning. So like if you make a deal with a Mind Reaper and a Ludri, that they will stick to that deal. There's some sense of fairness, like we have to follow these laws. So anyone that's brave enough to make a deal with them will find that they are aliens of their word. Once you kind of get that first little step down, you've got your ability stats down. They're about similar size to humans, a little taller and thinner, kind of Slendermanish. Their speed's normal, 30-foot movement. They are telepathic, so apart from normal kind of speech that they can emulate, they can talk to a number of people at one time, equivalent to their proficiency modifier. So when starting out, you can have a mental connection up to 120 feet away with 2 different people.
Now open your mind to me.
They can't talk to each other. They have to talk to you as a conduit. So if you're familiar with the spell Rary's Telepathic Bond, it's probably a poor man's version of that, but right from the get-go. You don't need to see the person to communicate with them. You kind of sense their mind, and you can call out to them and converse in whatever language you guys share. They do have mental sight, so somewhat to go with that telepathy. At one point, I wanted to match the range because there's no such thing as mind sight in D&D Beyond, which I've set this race up. You can play it now through D&D Beyond, but it got a little overpowered because it's the equivalent's blind sight, right? So I've reduced it down. Basically, they can sense other things and talk to them at 120 feet, but they can only have a solidified vision of exactly where they are to like pinpoint spells, attack them, yada, 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 at about 30 feet. And that seems to be a good balancing area. So at that point, they can see through magical darkness or magical illumination. I put forth light spells that basically blind the same way darkness spells would in my world. But they can see through that. They do, however, have one Achilles heel. If you take psychic damage, so if someone hits you with like a mind spike, or there's something that does a psychic, like scream or whatever, I believe, you are blinded. Your psychic sight goes haywire until you just complete a normal wisdom DC 10 roll at the end of your turn. Basically just overwhelmed. You do have normal vision, and you've got dark vision up to 60 feet like other races, demi races as well. So even with your psychic sight is kind of gone haywire, if you're blinded this way, you can still rely upon your mundane eyes to see in dark situations. And the other thing you can do, obviously, is consume brains. So at the base of the massive tentacles that are on your face, you have a small beak that is, over the years, honed to just crunch through skulls and get to the juicy, juicy brain matter beneath. It does minor healing, so you heal a D4 for each round that you feast on someone. They have to have they have to be in a certain conditioned state, so either restrained or incapacitated. There are some spells, even first level spells, like Snare. People usually overlook that spell, but it actually works quite well. And if it restrains a creature, you can, of course, feast upon them as well. In both situations, you would get advantage on your attack roll. And if you hit, you heal a D4, but you do a D4 plus your charisma modifier and damage. For the first round, you gain a day's worth of memory for your victim. The second round, you gain a week. The third round is a month. Fourth is a year. And the fifth round, you get the whole lifetime of this being's memories. The problem is they expire on the fifth round. So the loss of so much brain matter, they just become inert, like fall over and die. So you can assume someone's personality should you know everything about them, right? But the downside is that you're going to die. And that's a little evil. It's murder. Murder, death, kill.
Murder, death, kill, murder, death, kill, murder.
Going along with this, they can't just walk around, and usually they want to kind of flow in and out of societies. They do have a mental camouflage. So basically, they have the disguise self spell that they can do at will. And it's almost like they broadcast it to those around them of the image that they want to put up of what their self looks like. They have advantage when maintaining this spell because it does need concentration. So it's very easy for them to maintain concentration on this disguised self. But I put this in there as another balancing act. So basically, because of 5e rules with concentration in 2024 rules, you can't do 2 concentration spells at the same time. Or can you? I have a feat that's going to help that. But at any rate, you can't do multiples. And so you have to decide if there's certain spells you want to cast. You have to reveal yourself in order to do those. So that means there's other things like using your deception or trying to cover yourself with a cloak or whatnot to keep your identity secure, unless you've come out to some individuals. But it's assumed that you are reviled the universe over as a alpha predator and make others nervous at the very least of times. Make it look, per the disguise self spell, like a foot higher or a foot shorter, change your weight and whatnot. And others are believing of this. So that's kind of how they move around through societies. And finally, languages. I wanted them to be kind of a polyglot. So, and this goes with the idea of them being able to observe others on the sly. So they get the linguist feat when you first start out. Base language, which is you get deep speech, is your native tongue. You speak common, undercommon, and then you'll gain 3 languages of your choice beyond that. You also gain a point of intelligence due to the linguist feat. So that's that does kind of start them off with a little bit of a boon over other races. You're going to get basically 4 points for ability points instead of 3. And normally people are like, oh, that's unbalanced. Yeah, I get it. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really make that big of a deal. Everyone's got the same cap of 20. So it's not like it's unbalancing the game. And I find the need to try and keep yourself secretive, or at least work around that roleplay wise, is enough of a deterrent that it kind of balances out. And that is the Mind Reaper race, the Eludri. They work very, very well for a lot of casters, despite the fact that there's a history with their kin being adverse to magic. I think there's many different ways for you to work in a backstory of them becoming charmed or enchanted by the arcane in any of its forms, or for that matter, being pulled into the divine, God wishing to choose them in a moment's notice to be the linchpin to assist either the chosen avatar of that God or being, or to just be that chosen person themselves. There's numerous ways to play them where they get to pull out of their shell, as far as like, I know they're normally evil, but they maybe now work for a good cause. Maybe they're in it for themselves. It's a very interesting race, and I highly recommend you give it a shot. So yeah, if you're interested in playing a somewhat clandestine character that may or may not have evil machinations, and you don't mind imbibing a little gray matter with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Fava beans and a nice Chianti.
The Mind Reaper or Eludri might be right for you. Hope you give it a try, and I will talk to you all later. Keep on gaming.